Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard. I'm your host, Mehmet Fatih Akser. Every coach loves talking about their starting five, right? We spend hours debating lineups and offensive systems and defensive matchups and who gives us the best chance to win the opening tip. And we draw plays for our stars, analyze their stats, and celebrate their performances after games. But after years of coaching, I've become convinced that we are often looking in the wrong direction. Championships aren't won because you have the best starting five or the best player. They are won because you built the best team, and that's the difference. I have been around talented teams that never reach their potential. I have also seen teams with less talent accomplish incredible things. And looking back, the difference usually wasn't sitting on a court when the game began. It was sitting 10 feet away from me. The bench I'm talking about. Every season tells the same story. A starter rolls an ankle, a player gets into foul trouble, someone loses confidence, and someone has the flu. A matchup forces you to change your rotation. Suddenly, the player who hasn't played meaningful minutes all month becomes the most important player in the gym. The question is not whether that moment will come, because it will. The question is whether you have been preparing that player for it. Too many coaches think depth is something they recruit. I think depth is something they develop. Because every player on your roster arrives with different strengths, different weaknesses, and different timelines. Your responsibility isn't simply to identify who can help you today. It is to invest in who they can become tomorrow. And that's where I believe many coaches unintentionally make one of the biggest mistakes in our profession. Over the years, I have worked alongside coaches whose entire world rolled around seven or eight players. The rest of the roster became practice bodies. They ran scout team. They rebounded. They helped players, the starters, prepare for the games. They traveled with the team, though. They also sacrificed a lot. But they weren't really coached. The conversations stopped. The teaching stopped. The corrections stopped. Most importantly, the belief stopped. And those players were expected to work just as hard as everyone else, but very little was invested in their development. I have always struggled with that because I know who those players are. They are the ones arriving early for extra shooting. They are the ones staying after practice hoping you will notice. They are the ones diving on the floor in October when nobody is watching. They are the ones who refuse to quit because they believe that if they continue working hard, maybe, just maybe, their opportunity will come, and some of them never become starters. But every single one of them deserves a coach, though. Not equal playing time, not false promises, not empty encouragement. A coach. Someone willing to teach them, challenge them, correct them, believe in them. If a young person is willing to entrust you with 4 years of their life, the least they deserve is your attention. And that's one of the responsibilities that comes with this profession. And here's something I have learned. Players can accept difficult roles. What they struggle to accept are confusing ones. Research in sports psychology consistently shows that athletes respond better when their roles are clearly defined. They don't need every answer they want, but they do need honest answers. Tell them where they stand. Tell them what they do well. Tell them what they need to improve. Tell them what the team needs from them. And tell them what earning more responsibility actually looks like. Don't leave them guessing, because uncertainty creates frustration and clarity creates purpose. I have had players who weren't happy coming off the bench. Honestly, I wouldn't want them to be. Competitors should want more. The goal isn't to eliminate ambition, the goal is to channel it. A player should be able to say, Coach, I want to start. And the coach should be able to reply, Hey, I would love that. Now, let's talk about it, what it will take. And that's development, that's coaching. One of the biggest myths in basketball is that bench players simply wait for their chance. No, great bench players prepare for their chance. That's a huge difference. Preparation isn't passive. It is choosing to compete when no one is watching. It is staying engaged during film when even your minutes are limited. It's making the starters better every single day in practice. It's understanding that your contribution to the team begins long before your name is called. And that brings me to what I believe is one of the most overlooked truths in basketball. Your bench doesn't just support your team. Your bench builds your team. Every championship I have ever admired had one thing in common. The starters were never allowed to become comfortable. They were challenged every single day, not by the coaches, by the players standing across from them in practice. That's where championships quietly begin, not under bright lights on Saturday night, but on a random Tuesday afternoon when your second unit refuses to let your starters host. And that's why I believe the bench determines the quality of your practices. Think about it. If your second unit simply goes through the motions, your starters never experience real resistance. If the squad team doesn't communicate, if they don't close out, if they don't rebound, if they don't compete, your starters begin believing they are better than they actually are. Comfort quietly replaces growth, though. I have always believed that the second unit has one of the most important jobs in the program. Not because they are preparing for Saturday, they are preparing everyone else. Every drill, every possession, every defensive stop, every extra effort in practice raises the standard for the entire team. Your starters might win the game, but your bench helps build the starters. That's why I love watching practices. Games tell me who performed, but practice tells me who we are becoming. Sometimes the most valuable player in practice isn't the leading scorer. It is the reserve guard who pressures the ball for 94 feet. It is the freshman who dives on every loose ball. It's the post player who battles your all conference center every single day. And those players may never receive headlines, but they make everyone around them better. And basketball has always rewarded teams that understand them. Look at some of the greatest teams in history. The San Antonio Spurs didn't build a dynasty because everyone started. They built it because the players accepted responsibility, sacrificed individual recognition, and trusted that contributing to winning mattered more than hearing their name announced before tip-off. How about Golden State? They didn't win championships because every player averaged 30 minutes. They won because players embraced different roles, stayed prepared, and were trusted when the moment demanded it. Think about Andre Iguodala, former NBA All-Star, if you remember him. A player who could have insisted on being defined by the starting lineup. Instead, he accepted a different role because it gave his team the best chance to win. Then when the NBA Finals arrived, he stepped into the starting lineup and become Finals MVP. But his role changed, but his preparation never did. That's what great teams understand. Your role may change, your commitment cannot. I think every coach should ask themselves a difficult question. If one of my starters couldn't play tomorrow, would I trust the next player? And if the honest answer is no, why? Is it because the player isn't ready? Or because I never prepared them? Sometimes we blame our depth when we should examine our development. Every player on your roster should know exactly what they are working toward. Maybe today's role is defending the opponent's best scorer in practice. Maybe it is becoming the best rebounder on the team. Maybe it is learning to communicate on every possession. And maybe it is becoming someone your teammates trust when the pressure is highest. Development doesn't always begin with minutes. It begins with purpose. One of the greatest compliments I have ever heard wasn't about points or championships. It was when someone described a team by saying, every single player knew they mattered. Think about that. Not every player played the same amount. Not every player scored. Not every player finished games. But every player believed they had value. And that's culture. Culture isn't tested when everyone is happy. Culture is tested when the 12th player is still engaged in February. Culture is tested when someone loses their starting position and continues to encourage their teammate. Culture is tested when success belongs to someone else. That's when you discover whether you have built a team or simply assembled talent. As coaches, we influence far more than rotations. We shape confidence, right? We shape resilience. We shape the way young people respond when life doesn't go exactly as they planned. Well, some players will never become stars. Some may never start. Some may only play a few meaningful minutes during an entire season. But every single player who wears your jersey should leave your program believing they became matter. They became a better basketball player, a better teammate, a better leader, a better person because of your coaching. Years from now, very few people will remember who started your conference semifinal. They probably won't remember who averaged 12 points a game either. But your players will remember something else. They will remember whether they felt seen, whether they felt valued, whether they believed their coach cared about them beyond what they could contribute to the scoreboard. And here's the irony. When coaches genuinely invest in every player, basketball usually gets better too. Practice becomes more competitive because trust grows, communication improves, the locker room becomes stronger. Players always stay ready. And when adversity inevitably arrives, your team doesn't panic because everyone has been preparing for their moment all season. So the next time you walk into your gym, don't just look at your starting five. Look down the bench. Ask yourself if those players know where they're going. Ask yourself if they know what you're asking of them. Ask yourself if they know you still believe in them. Because championships are rarely won by five players or seven. They are won by entire programs that refuse to let anyone become invisible. The scoreboard may remember the players who made the winning shot, but every coach who has ever won something meaningful knows the truth. Championships are built long before the final buzzer. They build in practice, they build in relationships, and they build in trust. And they are built by coaches who refuse to believe that only five players deserve their very best. And that's what it truly means to go beyond the scoreboard.